Hello and welcome to the Week 12 edition of the Pickwatch podcast. I am Casey Joyner, the football scientist. You might remember me from my 14-year stint with ESPN where I covered the NFL and fantasy football. I'm now on the independent path via my website, thefootballscientist.com, and I'm doing a weekly pick'em article for Pickwatch. My Week 11 picks went 7-7, bringing my 2020 season mark to 101-45, or a 67.5% win rate that is tied for 8th highest among the more than 100 analysts tracked by Pickwatch.com. Here are my Week 12 picks. Each section details which team is predicted to win and provides a quick summary of why that selection was made. The picks also contain a confidence value for each selection based on a 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being the most confident and 1 being the least confident. Now on to the picks. Let's start with the Thanksgiving kickoff matchup of Houston at Detroit. The Texans were one of the worst teams in the league in the first month of the season, but they have won 3 of their past 6, and 2 of their 3 losses in that span were by a total of 9 points. A major factor in the turnaround is turnover control, as Houston has posted only 2 giveaways in the past 5 weeks. Detroit is trending in the other direction, having lost 3 out of 4 while getting shut out this past week for the first time since Week 6 of the 2009 campaign. The Lions' defense is a sieve, having allowed more than 350 offensive yards in all but one game this year, and giving up 23 or more points on 7 occasions. Since Houston has scored 27 or more points in 4 of the past 6 games, they are likely to put up a point total that the injury-racked Lions cannot keep up with, so the Texans are to pick in this one with a confidence level of 5. Now let's take a look at Washington at Dallas. This matchup isn't the holiday battle of the heavyweights it was back in this rivalry's prime, but the football team and the Cowboys are both playing at a much higher level now than they were earlier in the year. Washington has won 2 of its past 4 games in part due to allowing fewer than 300 net offensive yards in 3 of those 4 contests. Dallas saw an immediate passing improvement with Andy Dalton back under center, but don't overlook a Cowboys ground attack that has generated 130 more rushing yards in 3 straight games. This is the epitome of a pick'em matchup, so home field moves this one towards the Cowboys with a confidence level of 1. Now we close out the Thanksgiving matchups with Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Baltimore started off the year with a 5-1 mark, but has since lost 3 out of 4 and will be eliminated from the AFC North Divisional title race with a loss in this contest. Myriad issues have caused this drop-off, as the Ravens have allowed 170 more rushing yards in 3 of the past 5 games, have tallied more than 200 net passing yards only 3 times this season, and haven't scored more than 24 points in the game since mid-October. The undefeated Steelers have been in cruise control the past 2 weeks by beating Cincinnati and Jacksonville by a combined 63-13 score. The Steelers' habit of overlooking opponents won't occur on this bitter divisional matchup, so they have the choice here by a comfortable margin with a confidence level of 6. Let's start the Sunday slate with Las Vegas at Atlanta. The Raiders are on an offensive tear right now, as the Silver and Black have scored 98 points over the past 3 contests. Las Vegas has yet to post fewer than 300 net offensive yards in a game, and they have only 2 giveaways in the past 4 games. That pace should continue against an Atlanta defense that has yet to allow fewer than 350 net offensive yards in a game this year, and has allowed 23 or more offensive points in all but one matchup. The Falcons' offense could try to keep up in a shootout, but Atlanta has scored 22 or fewer points in 4 of their past 7 contests. Add it all up, and the Raiders simply have more paths to victory, so Las Vegas gets the selection here with a confidence level of 4. Now let's take a look at what should be an interesting AFC battle, the LA Chargers at Buffalo. Scoring points hasn't been an issue for the Chargers since Justin Herbert took over as quarterback, as the Bolts have racked up 26 or more points in 6 of the past 7 games. The problem for LA is their defense is every bit as adept at giving up points, something evidenced by a 7-game streak of allowing 28 or more points. The Bills were one of the highest scoring teams in the league until Tennessee showed everyone how to slow Buffalo's offense, but 74 points in the past 2 games indicates Buffalo's offense is back to its top flight level. The key here is Buffalo is 4-1 in shootout games this year, while the Chargers are 2-3-1, with their wins coming against the Jets and Jaguars. That indicates the Bills are better suited for this high-scoring contest, and thus earns Buffalo the pick here with a confidence level of 6. Next up is one of the least scintillating games of Week 12, the New York Giants at Cincinnati. It's tough to overlook the Giants' 1-7 start, yet the reality is this is a team trending in the right direction in many areas. Big Blue's offense was arguably the worst in the league in September, but the Giants have now scored 20 or more points in 6 straight games and have posted 732 offensive yards and 0 giveaways over the past 2 weeks. New York's defense has also been highly opportunistic with 12 takeaways since Week 4. The Bengals' offense lost a ton of firepower with Joe Burrow's season-ending knee injury, so this one easily lands in the Giants column with a confidence level of 6. Now let's take a look at the matchup for the lead in the AFC South, Tennessee at Indianapolis. These teams both sport 7-3 records, yet the reality is they are trending in different directions. The Colts have won 4 of their last 5, largely due to an offense that has racked up 400 or more offensive yards in 3 of those wins, and 30 or more points in 4 of those victories. The Titans have lost 3 of their last 5, primarily because of an inability to put points on the board, as they tallied only 61 points in those 3 losses. Those trends point towards Indianapolis being able to pace this game in a way that doesn't bode well for Tennessee, so the Colts are the pick in this one with a confidence level of 3. Now let's head to North Florida for the matchup of Cleveland at Jacksonville. This has been a 2-part season for Cleveland, as the Browns started the year by racking up 32 or more points in 4 of their first 5 games, but has since scored 10 or fewer points in 3 of the past 5 games. This hasn't stopped Cleveland from success, as the Browns have allowed 17 or fewer points in 3 straight and given up 250 or fewer net passing yards in 5 of the past 6 games. Jacksonville isn't as bad as their 1-9 mark indicates, as 5 of their losses have been by 1 possession, but they simply don't have the firepower on offense or defense to keep up with a very talented Cleveland squad, so the Browns are the pick here with a confidence level of 7. Now let's take a look at Carolina at Minnesota. Minnesota looked like they had turned things around in a 3-game win streak, but their defense fell back into old habits by giving up 31 points and 180 rushing yards to Dallas. That game also marked the 8th time Minnesota has allowed 350 more offensive yards to an opponent this season. Carolina was on the flip side of that equation, as they ended a 5-game losing streak by shutting out the Lions and holding Detroit to only 185 net offensive yards. The problem for the Panthers is the Lions had an injury-racked offense, and the Vikings won't be missing most of their offensive talent, so Minnesota is the selection here by a solid margin with a confidence level of 4. Now let's look at what should be a very interesting matchup of Arizona at New England. The Patriots aren't the offensive juggernaut that they were in the Tom Brady years, but over the past 3 weeks they have racked up 1,176 yards and 0 giveaways on offense, so this platoon is more than holding its own of late. By contrast, the Cardinals had their worst offensive showing of the year last week by posting season lows in points scored and offensive yards against Seattle. Having noted these trends, Arizona did poorly against Seattle because they had the Thursday night road game blues, so the Cardinals should return to the 30-plus point range that they posted in 5 straight contests prior to that loss. Since New England has scored 30 or more points only once since Week 4, they likely will not be able to keep up with Arizona's scoring pace, so the Cardinals are the pick here with a confidence level of 5. Now let's look at an AFC East matchup of Miami at the New York Jets. It may have seemed shocking for Miami to bench Tua Tagovailoa against Denver last week, but it was necessary considering that the Dolphins have posted fewer than 300 net offensive yards in 3 of the 4 games that Tua started. Miami's defense has also become a major problem, as the Dolphins have allowed 440 or more offensive yards in 3 of the past 4 contests. The Jets are trending better in many areas, as New York has posted 55 points, 614 yards, and only 2 giveaways in the past 2 weeks. Miami has too much of a talent edge to pick against the Dolphins in this one, but it would not be a surprise if the Jets pulled off the upset here, so Miami gets this selection by a very small margin with a confidence level of 2. Here's another intriguing matchup this week, New Orleans at Denver. One of the main reasons that the Saints didn't miss a beat without Drew Brees in the lineup is that New Orleans is no longer a pass-centric team. The Saints have thrown for more than 300 net passing yards only 2 times this year, and they have gained 100 or more rushing yards in all but 2 contests. The New Orleans pass defense is key to this, as the Saints have held 7 straight foes to under 250 net passing yards. That platoon has also racked up 10 takeaways in the past 4 weeks, and given up an average of 48 rushing yards per game in the past 5 contests. Denver was able to work around its limitations to beat a flawed Miami team last week, but the Saints won't provide the Broncos with a similar path to victory. So New Orleans is the choice here with a confidence level of 7. Now we head off to the NFC West for San Francisco at the LA Rams. The Rams have been an underrated team for much of the 2020 season, but that should change after the past 2 weeks when they held the powerhouse Seattle and Tampa Bay offenses to a total of 40 points and 429 passing yards combined. The Rams are also experts at takeaways, having generated at least 2 of those in 4 straight contests. Los Angeles doesn't score a ton of points, but their offense has tallied 370 more offensive yards in all but 2 games this year. That last trend doesn't bode well for a San Francisco offense that has posted 2 or more giveaways in 6 of the past 7 games, so the Rams are the pick here by a considerable margin with a confidence level of 7. Now we go to the marquee matchup of Week 12, Kansas City at Tampa Bay. The Chiefs started the season with a ground and pound approach, but have returned to their pass-happy ways of late with 350 more net passing yards in 3 straight games. This display of firepower is a main factor in Kansas City averaging a ridiculous 36.5 points per game over the past 4 contests. The Chiefs' secondary doesn't allow teams to use the same pass-centric approach in return, as Kansas City has given up fewer than 250 net passing yards in 6 games this year. Tampa Bay goes as their offense goes, as the Buccaneers are 6-1 when they post 330 more offensive yards this year, and they're 1-3 when they don't. Since the Chiefs' defense has the ability to slow the Buccaneers' passing attack down, the odds are strong that Tampa Bay ends up under the 330 offensive yard mark, so Kansas City is the selection here by a small margin, with a confidence level of 2. Now we go to a classic NFC North matchup of Chicago at Green Bay. The NFC East keeps the Packers from being the least impressive division leader in the league, but the fact that in the past 6 weeks Green Bay was destroyed by Tampa Bay, got run over by Minnesota's rushing attack, scored only 3 points in the second half in overtime while blowing a 14-point halftime lead to the Colts, and notched 3 wins against mediocre clubs shows just how poorly the Packers are playing right now. The good news for Green Bay is Chicago now counts as a mediocre club after losing 4 straight and posting 17 or fewer points in 3 of those losses. Add this contest being in Green Bay and the Bears' quarterback quandary, and it equals a fairly confident Packers win with a confidence level of 6. Let's close out the Week 12 slate with the Monday night matchup of Seattle at Philadelphia. Russell Wilson said he was going to do everything he could to eliminate the turnovers that have been plaguing the Seahawks offense, and he delivered on that with 0 giveaways in Seattle's win last week over Arizona. A big part of why Wilson was able to do that was a Seahawks ground attack that racked up 165 rushing yards against the Cardinals. That factor should dovetail well versus a Philadelphia rush defense that is surprisingly allowed 130 rushing yards in 6 straight contests. Combine this trend with Carson Wentz not being able to solve his penchant for giveaways, and Seattle's strong track record of faring well in East Coast games, and this pick ends up in the Seattle column with a confidence level of 5.